Hey, everybody. It's time for the Stand Up with Pete Dominic podcast. Episode 18, I think we're at. Wow. Very exciting news. We've got 200 paying subscribers, 200 very generous, kind, invested people, and it feels great. I'm really excited about it. I want to keep it growing and going. I want to keep hearing your feedback. So thank you very much for subscribing on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Pete Dominic. On today's episode, I welcome Lenore Skenazy of Free Range Parenting. Love talking parenting, and I love talking with Lenore Skenazy. We had a nice, long, thoughtful conversation, and I cannot wait to play that for you. That's coming up right now. I always say I cannot wait to play that for you. Before I do, I'm going to share with you my appearances on cable news, and you can just fast forward ahead to Lenore if you'd like, but I was invited on both CNN and MSNBC over the weekend, and I just want to share them with you because I thought they were some good commentary about some important issues, and that is what we are going to continue to do here on the Stand Up with Pete Dominic podcast. A lot of what we did back at SiriusXM, talking to experts, fighting apathy, learning and growing together. This is the place to listen to conversations with really smart experts, and I am not that guy. I'm just the person who's curious and asking them the questions. And so I'll go on cable news and spend a few minutes there. It's a completely different game because you're only on for generally a few minutes, and I could be smart for a few minutes on cable news. Here on the show, who wants to hear me yap away for a really long time about, well, almost anything? But I can do it on the TV. I did do it on the TV. And here's my appearance on CNN with Ana Cabrera, who I really like. I haven't been on CNN in a little bit. And folks seem to really like this appearance. We talked about President Trump's insane remarks about toilet flushing and water conservation, or his lack of interest in it, as well as after that, I was over on MSNBC on Sunday, I should say, with Candace Gibson and Jill Filipovich, who is really smart. I'll play that next. Here is my appearance on CNN on Saturday afternoon with Ana Cabrera talking about Hillary Clinton and President Trump, of all things.
President Trump apparently has some issues with water-conscious toilets and showers and faucets.
We have a situation where we're looking very strongly at sinks and showers and other elements of bathrooms where you turn on the faucet, you don't get any water. They take a shower and water comes dripping out, just dripping out, very quietly dripping out. People are flushing toilets 10 times, 15 times, as opposed to once. They end up using more water. So EPA is looking at that very strongly, at my suggestion.
The president was meeting with business leaders at the White House yesterday when he brought this up, that he now wants a nationwide review of water efficiency standards because of low-flow flushing and other plumbing issues. Joining us now, comedian and the host of the Stand Up with Pete Dominic podcast, Pete Dominic.
Hey,
good to have you here.
Great to be here, thanks.
So just listening to that,
Yeah.
I just wonder what goes through your mind. That seems like it would be comedy gold for somebody like yourself.
Oh, it's almost, too low hanging. It's toilet humor. You put a small man in a big job and he will revert to his potty training. And if you look on Twitter, it's all about, of course, President Trump has to flush 15 times because he's so full of it, but they don't say it. I mean, you can go anywhere you want because he's talking about toilets. But I also choose to go highbrow, which is to say this is the President of the United States. And today, of course, Anna, this is Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, and a day removed from FDR, is considered one of the greatest presidents of all time, giving a day of infamy speech. And also this week, world leaders were laughing at our president. And this is the kind of reason why. The president has no idea what he's talking about. And it's so nonsensical, and it makes it sound like he's...
But he actually sounded serious. He says the EPA is going to look into this.
Right. The EPA is going to look into it because his EPA doesn't believe in climate change. He thinks that windmills cause cancer, and climate change is a hoax. And he thinks that we should be able to use as much resources as we want when the world is running out of water. So he's completely on the wrong page with the rest of the world. By the way, there's a climate conference going on, the UN climate conference right now as well. And so the idea that he's looking into toilets, no one's flushing their toilet 15 times. Nobody's doing that except potentially maybe for him because of the things that he's flushing down that toilet, evidence, facts, and all kinds of other jokes that we can make. That it's so lowbrow, Anna. It's almost too easy, but it's also terrifying because it's so nonsensical that he's talking about this.
Let me ask you about Hillary Clinton's interview in the news she made this week. She was on Howard Stern.
2.5 hours, I think.
And she talked about Trump. She talked about Bill. She talked about sexuality.
Yeah.
She was so candid in a way most of us have never seen her be before. And then over on Fox News, what did they choose to highlight?
Yeah.
A moment when she was coughing. And in fact, not only did they, supercut that moment, then Tucker Carlson brings in somebody who's not her doctor, by the way, to diagnose her. Watch this.
Also in 2016, Tucker, she was known and repeatedly said that she liked to eat jalapeno peppers and drink coffee and drink alcohol. Well, all of those things can lead to a terrible amount of acid reflux, which causes cough. Asthma, too. So if I were her physician or someone like her, and we can do a public health service here, I'd say if you're coughing, recurrent coughing, get to be seen, have a pulmonary workup, make sure you don't have reflux, asthma, pulmonary infections, or stress.
Pete, this is what Fox was putting out to millions of viewers this week. What was your reaction when you saw that?
Well, my reaction to that is, of course, that's what they're doing. It works. That's the reason why they have so many viewers. It's entertaining. I mean, Tucker Carlson, of course, is an avowed white supremacist, a white nationalist, however you want to look at it. I've been watching your hour here. You're performing journalism this entire hour. Right now, I'm giving you my commentary, my opinion, and my analysis, but you're performing journalism. You're covering the big issues of the day. And that doesn't necessarily, journalism is supposed to be a lost leader. We're talking about the important issues, but that doesn't get as many viewers as a guy like Tucker Carlson doing, quote, fake analysis.
But you don't think that the audience wants to know the truth, wants to know the facts? I mean, when you talk about, doing real journalism doesn't get as many viewers?
Yeah.
Why is that, do you think, if that is true?
Well, do we have another few hours? I have a lot of thoughts on that. As a comedian who's worked at The Daily Show and The Colbert Report and had my own national radio show, there's this infotainment element, and there's this wanting to be catered to and wanting to be entertained and wanting to hear the things that compromise with your predetermined bias. The idea that Tucker Carlson is even talking about Hillary Clinton. Why? Why is she in the news? Because, she was on Howard Stern, by the way, for 2.5 hours. I mean, this question, it's also an issue of sexism, this question of women and their frailty because she was coughing. This is a woman who, by the way, testified for 11 hours when she was in front of the Benghazi committee, of course, and we won't see our current Secretary of State for 1 minute in front of the impeachment inquiry, Pompeo, who questioned her in those 11 hours. She is obviously, you say what you will about Hillary Clinton, she's obviously a very strong, thoughtful woman. She sat there and talked to Howard, who's a master at making people feel comfortable in an honest way for 2.5 hours. That is worthy of news. We can talk about some of the things, but the idea of talking about and have a supercut of her coughing and having some doctor, which is the height of irresponsibility for physicians, examining her from afar is terrible. And it's not news, and it's not journalism, and it's not important.
Pete Dominic, great to have you here.
Thanks for having me,
Anna.
Anytime.
Thank you for sharing your voice with us, your perspective. For many.
Okay, so hopefully you thought that was some great analysis, although let's go back and make fun of the way I pronounced Benghazi. Can I isolate that? Let's see, I'm getting better with the editing software. I said Benghazi like I was Schwarzenegger. Is this it?
Benghazi
Committee. What am I? Get to the chopper.
Benghazi Committee.
Good Lord, that was terrible. Sorry about that, as well as a few other misspeakings. But I talked fast and said a lot. That was CNN. Let's now head over to the other. Do you think anybody else was on both CNN and MSNBC over the weekend? No, I bet you nobody. I bet you it was just Pete Dominic. I'm in great demand, ladies and gentlemen, and I have plenty of time to do it. Always happy to go on the cable news for a few minutes and talk to my friends. All right, so here I am now on MSNBC. Yesterday, they have a fun segment with the anchor Candace Gibson. I was on during the 3 p.m. hour with writer Jill Filipovich, and we were doing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Here is that, the good, bad, and ugly news stories from this past week.
Before we begin the week ahead, let's take a moment to dissect the week that was. The good, the bad, the ugly. Joining me this week, Jill Filipovich, who is the author and contributing opinion writer with the New York Times, and also Pete Dominick, radio host and comedian. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There is a lot to dissect from this week. Your good had to do with something that kept me up at 6 a.m. this morning. I had to be in this morning, but I was also watching outer space this morning.
Yeah, it's SpaceX. Launched another rocket. They brought 7,500 pounds of cargo to the space station, including all these scientific experiments, including mice. They're studying mice to see how to replace muscle and bone loss on humans. And they're mighty mice. They're genetically modified mice, and that's just one of the experiments. They also have Christmas presents, and the space station has all these international folks, men, women. It's a great story. This is a successful story.
And these aren't mice that are going to return to New York City and just run rampage all over the subways.
You do not have to worry about them coming back, Kenneth. They're going to stay in the space station.
Okay.
Actually, I have no idea.
You have no... All right, Jill, what was your good?
My good this week is Nancy Pelosi standing up to a reporter who asked her if she hates Donald Trump. And Pelosi is saying she doesn't hate anyone. She takes that word really seriously. And don't mess with her and come at her with that. The women of impeachment have been so overwhelmingly impressive, kind of from tip to tail. And seeing Pelosi really stand up against divisiveness and hate in politics in such a sort of strong and meaningful way was my good.
All right, let's talk about your bad, Pete. And it's something that not a lot of people were paying attention to this week because we had a lot going on.
Yeah.
The SNAP.
Yeah, cuts to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. 700,000 people at this time of year, Christmas, talk about Dickensian, losing their food, the access to healthy, nutritional food. And, you know, Nelson Mandela, of course, said, Kenneth, that poverty, like slavery and apartheid, is a man-made problem that can be solved by men. We need these programs. They're desperately important. We gave wealthy individuals $1.9 trillion in Trump tax cuts, which is 200 times more than what we just cut from poor, needy people and their food program. I always like to say when people debate welfare, welfare reform, let's have welfare reform. Yeah, which corporate subsidies should we cut first? That's where I want to go with cutting welfare.
Not enough attention paid for that. Appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah.
And yours had to do with an interesting moment on the Hill this week.
Yeah, my bad is the completely cynical exploitation of Pamela Karlan's comment about Trump may have a son named Barron, but he's not a Baron. And this right-wing response, which has been to suggest that she was somehow mocking the president's son or going after a presidential family member, it wasn't true. It was lazy. It was cynical, especially when the president himself has gone after children, including Greta Thunberg. And to see then the right, the first lady, really exploit that moment was just shameful.
And Karlan did apologize during the hearing itself.
And she did apologize. And look, it was a silly error. She probably shouldn't have even said Barron's name. It was at worst a distraction. But it was not the attack on a child that right-wing media and Republican operatives have claimed that it was.
All right. You're ugly, Pete.
My ugly is pretty easy. I wish we all agreed. It's American Nazis, guys. Corrections officers in West Virginia, a photo of them saluting the Nazi salute. I'm old enough to remember, like, even if you didn't study World War II growing up, our grandfathers, our grandparents fought in this. I had Indiana Jones. This generation of tour of duty. There is no excuse for Nazism, and it must be ferreted out anywhere it appears.
And really quickly, Jill.
Mine is Nikki Haley and the Confederate flag. Her defense of it.
We're ending on a theme here.
Suggesting that the Confederate flag was previously about sacrifice and heritage. It has always been about hate. It has been about representing a war to defend slavery. It is ugly. It has no place in the United States and certainly no place in our politics. And it's embarrassing and disgusting that a politician would defend it.
Yeah, a lot of people are giving her some heat for that, and as you
Rightly.
mentioned, it's understandably so. Jill Filipovic and Pete Dominic, thank you guys.
Thank you,
Have
sir.
a great week.
You too.
Fun week ahead.
Fun week ahead. All right, Candace Gibson. I don't know how you have some kind of a crystal ball, but it haven't been so many fun weeks, at least in terms of the news. But I always enjoy going on with him, and it was really cool to finally meet Jill Filipovic. Definitely going to have her on this program now. But let's get to my conversation, the headliner, the feature, and the main guest of episode 18 of Stand Up with Pete Dominic. It is my conversation with Lenore Skenazy. Free-range kids versus helicopter parenting. There is no right, there is no wrong, there's no one-size-fits-all, but there is always a great talk with the fun, smart, open-minded, curious, confident Lenore Skenazy. Here it is. Well, on the old show, we talked about parenting a lot. I shared my own life experiences as a father, my successes, my failures, as much as I could, as honestly as I could. You shared yours with me. Lots of you say that's one of the issues you miss hearing us talk about the most. So that ends today. Joining me now, very special guest who I always enjoy talking to and learning from. She is smart, she is funny, and she is fearless. She's the founder of the Free Range Kids movement, the author of Free Range Kids, How to Raise Safe, Self-Reliant Children Without Going Nuts with Worry, and the president of Let Grow. Please welcome to the program, Lenore Skenazy on the Stand Up with Pete Dominic podcast. Hi, Lenore.
Hi there, Pete. I'm so honored to be one of your new people. This is great.
You're one of the old people that I love the most.
The new old people, yeah.
Yes, and we'll call you whatever you want. I call you a great guest, expert, and resource on a very important issue, which is overall, I think, parenting. But your mission statement on Let Grow says on the website, if you're a nonprofit, says treating today's kids as physically and emotionally fragile is bad for their future and ours. Let Grow counters the culture of overprotection. We aim to future-proof our kids and our country. I love that. Explain, Lenore. What's the problem?
First of all, I'm so sorry you love it. We keep having conversations about, should we update that? Does anybody understand future-proof? It sounds like we're military or we're technologically, obsessed. That's not it. But anyways, maybe we'll keep it.
I love it.
Okay. One vote from Pete. The whole idea is that somehow over the last generation or two, we've come to start thinking of kids as incredibly vulnerable all the time, emotionally, physically, psychologically, and that therefore, not just parents, but schools, coaches, everybody has to treat them delicately as if they're about to, be hurt. And ironically, doing everything with them and for them and just always overseeing everything that they're up to is making them, or something, let's say something, and I think it's that, is making kids today very anxious and depressed. And so we're trying to remind not just parents, but the whole country that, kids are pretty resilient and that independence is important. Independence isn't just a nice thing that you can read about in Harry Potter books. It's something that your own kids need to experience because you can't hand them a childhood. They have to sort of live through a childhood. And in fact, if I ask you or if you ask your listeners to remember their own childhoods, probably one of the things they loved best, if not the only thing they loved, was having some free time to do stuff that they enjoyed, maybe even, goof off a little with their friends. Let me ask you, Pete, what's your favorite childhood memory?
Oh, that's I have so many. I'm actually at my parents' house. I'm in my childhood bedroom talking to you right now, so that's easy. But I think all of my childhood memories go back to being in nature, walking through the drainage pipe on my street, skateboarding and skiing and being in the woods and just being outside playing are where all of my favorite childhood memories live.
Right. So sometimes when I'm giving a talk and I ask the audience this question, what's your favorite thing that you love to do as a child that you don't let your own kid do? there's a little bit of nervous laughter, and then there's just this tsunami of memories that people have of the real joy of like going out in the woods and maybe making a little fort and having your buddies there. And it was like your own little world. And then you'd get in fights because some kids would want to do one thing and you'd want to do another, and then you'd have to solve them. And all that is missing if we say, hey, buddy, let's go to, the playground today and I'll play the bear and you can try to get away from me. It's absolutely not the same thing, even though parents are doing their best to get their kids outside and to give them some free time and free play, but they're not letting it really happen. Right. They're creating this false independence that is really just,
Lenore,
under surveillance.
Take us back to where this began with you, with your own son, I believe, when he was about 10 years old, right?
Yeah, I'll take you back, and then I'm going to read you a couple of amazing things from some 11-year-olds that I just got. So when our son was 9, our younger son, he asked me and my husband if we would take him someplace he'd never been before here in New York City, where we live, and let him find his own way home by the subway, because he was a sort of subway and bus-obsessed boy. And we decided, okay. And so one sunny Sunday, I took him to Bloomingdale's. I left him in the handbag department because Bloomingdale's happens to be right over a subway stop. There's actually a Bloomingdale's subway stop. And I went one way and he went the other way, and he went into the subway. He took it home. About a month and a half later, I wrote a column about it because I'm a newspaper columnist by trade. And 2 days after why I let my 9-year-old ride the subway alone was in the paper, I was on the Today Show, MSNBC, Fox News, and NPR defending myself and having to answer a lot of sort of pointed questions about, like, well, how would you have felt if he never came home? Really, people were, it's not only were people angry at me, they were sort of angry that the story was on my side. Well, he did come home. Why are you asking? He's fine. Right. They're always trying to imagine the worst case scenario. And that's when I started realizing that our country had gone from sort of trusting in kids and trusting, that the world is not hell, to really thinking about children as being about to die anytime you take your eyes off them. And any parent who does that, who takes their eyes off them, is therefore so irresponsible and awful because they're not catastrophizing. So catastrophizing has sort of become the hallmark of decent parenting. You're supposed to imagine how you'd feel if something awful happened, and so then you don't let anything happen.
Right. And I mean, is so well put. Catastrophizing has become the hallmark of parenting. I mean, what changed, though? I mean, what do you think? How do you diagnose on what changed between our parents' generation and our generation of parents?
Wow, there's so many things that have changed. And I'll go through the 4 that are easy and obvious, and then I'll try to talk about 2 that I think are really that I'm just sort of working my way through. So first of all, we're way more media saturated than certainly my parents were, or even probably that your parents were, because we went from, the nightly news to cable TV and 24-hour news cycle. And now, of course, the internet, where there's, it's the nanosecond news cycle. And what gets the most eyeballs are the stories that upset us the most. And generally, before politics became the overweening obsession, it was children who were kidnapped by a stranger. So the most unlikely, the most horrific, the most gut-wrenching crime started appearing 24 hours a day in front of us, even though it's extraordinarily rare, thank God, in real life. And your brain takes all these stories and these emotions in, and it doesn't carefully pack them into, well, that was on Law and Order, and that was 25 years ago with Eitan, and that was John Walsh. It all becomes part of this big hairball of fear that is immediately comes up in your brain. I don't know how a hairball comes up in your brain, but imagine that it does. Right? The second you think, like, can my kid stand at the bus stop by himself? No, Eitan was at the bus stop by himself. Well, can my kid go 1 aisle away from me at the grocery store? No, that's Adam Walsh was an aisle away. And so the worst stories are the easiest to retrieve because they're so emotional, and we know the names and we've seen videos of the parents. And so whenever you're thinking, gee, is this safe? Instead of having any kind of rational outlook on it, the worst stories flood our brain with warnings like, no, remember, something awful could happen. So the media is
Media
obviously
saturation, you call it. I'm going to take that like I do everything from you and use it as a label, as a descriptor. Because, yeah, that's exactly it. And you explain it well. What's number 2? Sorry.
Number 2 is litigious society. Everybody starts thinking like lawyers. In Richland, Washington, they got rid of all the swing sets on the playgrounds because it's like, so, they look at a list and it was at the top of the list for danger. And it's like, once you start thinking like a lawyer, what could go wrong? How could I be blamed? Is this going to be, am I going to have to explain this to a judge someday? Without even thinking quite that explicitly, we just start thinking like, well, that's a death trap. Oh, that can't work. Oh, that could go wrong. And so we've internalized almost the pencil neck geek at the corporation who says, oh, no, let's just get rid of those swings. It'll be better because then there won't be anything unsafe there. And there's nobody countering that with, wait, what's lost when you go for a zero risk society? So I think the litigious part of the country, of our culture, has seeped into even our parenting decisions, and certainly the decisions that administrators at schools and YMCA's, et cetera.
Right. Whether you're a homeowner or a business or a school, administrator, you have to worry about being sued all the time for the most normal of behaviors or functions, right?
Yes, and I don't know if you read this, but like 2 months ago, or maybe even just 1 month ago, a school district in New Jersey was found guilty and had to pay I can never remember if it's $107,000 or $170,000 to a kid who fell off a slide and broke his arm. And the rationale that won the judge or the jury over was that the slide was at a 5-degree angle too steep, compared to some other slide or whatever. It's like, well, you just know that if one kid fell off the slide, it wasn't like every kid was falling off the slide and all they had was broken-armed children going to this school. So the idea that something weird can't happen, that there can never be an accident, that there isn't somebody to blame in every case, those are out the window when you start thinking that, oh my God, if this goes to court, I'm going to lose.
Yeah, my daughter Julia, when she was 5 years old in kindergarten, actually the first day of kindergarten, she fell after school. She fell off the monkey bars. I was there because we had soccer practice at her school and I was the coach. She fell off the monkey bars and broke her arm on the first day of kindergarten. And they got rid of the monkey bars, not as a result of that, but we never thought about suing, and it never occurred to me. A girl behind her, a friend, like I think gave her a nudge, and she just fell, and it was an accident. And granted, I did beat that other girl up. She was a small girl. I could take her
and her dad
and her father, her whole family. We all fought. No, there was no blame. There was no blame. And as a matter of fact, I don't want to fast forward in our conversation, but in the weirdest kind of way, as horrible as that was for us, she had to have surgery. She had to be in an ambulance. It was terrible. She was in tremendous pain. It made her so much stronger. The rest of kindergarten, where that first month, she had a pink cast on. Everybody knew who Julia was. And it was a defining moment for her. And you wouldn't wish it on your child, but in those moments where they have to overcome those challenges, that is when they develop. I don't know if you want to comment on that or go to number 3.
I do. I want to diverge for a second. Sorry, I was making myself a little lemonade. Because when life hands you lemons, and for one reason or another.
In December, why not? Yeah.
A ton of lemons here right now. Anyways, a party gone wrong. So sometimes another question I like to ask audiences, and once again, I'll ask you, is besides this, when in your childhood, can you remember a time when you and your buddies were playing and something went very wrong? Because I actually can't remember because I'm a girl and all I did was look for 4-leaf clovers, but other people have interesting childhoods. So
yeah, my brother was, we were in the woods and he picked up a rock and there was a bee's nest under it and he got stung by a whole bunch of bees. And I, being the dumb kid, thought that if I kicked him, that would stop the bees. And I remember him screaming at me, "Why are you kicking me?" And then a smarter kid came over and sprayed him down with a hose. And so that happened.
Oh, okay. Well, my guess is that that's something that you ended up telling your parents about.
For sure. But I also ended up realizing the best way to stop bees from stinging you is water, not a brutal beating.
Yeah, not kicking. Yeah, the idea of a beating doing anything good to someone is curious, and we could talk about that at length. Okay, so your story actually ends up differently from the one I want to tell. So I'm going to immediately divert to my story.
Go ahead.
The way it goes. feel free to press edit. So I'll just tell you two stories that I got from people, and they actually both happen to be school administrators. So one woman said that when she was a kid, she and her friends were riding their bikes down this, what in retrospect always, I don't know if it really was a very steep hill, but it felt like it at the time. And it was covered with pine needles. So they were going down really fast. It was like slick and fast. And at the bottom, there was a street. And so she was just, whooshing down the hill. And she, she's getting close to the street. And so she squeezes the handbrakes, and up comes the handlebars. The handlebars detach from the bike.
Yikes.
It's like a cartoon, except that it was real. And so she had like a split second to figure out, oh my God, and she flung herself off the bike into a bush and, got all scratched up, but so be it. And then what she did is she went and she got her bike and she put the handlebars back on. And with a little more caution, they proceeded to play for the rest of the afternoon. And she never told her parents. And then the guy next to her, probably the superintendent, not wanting to be one-up, said, well, here's my story. When he was a kid, he was playing Mumbly Peg, which is the stupidest thing in the world, and nobody should ever play it. But there he was playing Mumbly Peg, where you throw a knife into the ground. What is it, between your feet or something like that?
Yikes.
Once again, not part of my childhood. Anyways, instead of throwing it between this kid's feet, a knife got lodged into a kid's foot, and everybody around the kid, all these stupid boys had one instinct, which is, oh my God, let's get him cleaned up. So they sort of formed a little band of people around him, and you can't really see him, and they shuffle him inside and upstairs. Nothing, everything's fine, going for a drink of water or whatever. And they washed off his foot in the shower, and they put on a Band-Aid. And in both these cases, they never told their parents. The girl who almost went into traffic on her bike, and the kid with the hurt foot, and everybody who was part of that. And when I asked them why not, I think you can guess. Why didn't they tell their parents?
Because they were terrified of what their parents would say to them and prevent them from ever having fun again.
That's it. And what you're calling fun, I'm calling independence.
Fair enough.
So they knew that there was something really precious that they had to protect, and that was their freedom. And the reason I bring up these stories and I have people remember them is because if it was that important to you that you were going to, lie to your parents or hold yourself together, after you've been shaken to the core or bloodied and bruised, it must mean that was something extremely important to you. And you knew that your parents didn't have to know exactly what was going on because you could handle it.
Right.
And so now when parents or adults are with kids all the time, and it's like, oh my God, your foot's hurt. Let me get out the Bactine and I'm going to put on a Band-Aid and we'll make an appointment and we'll go get an x-ray. That's a very different experience. And what the kid doesn't get out of it is any kind of feeling like, I can handle that, or wow, that was a close call, but look at me, here I am today. Instead, it's all being helped and assisted and cosseted. And when we look at the anxiety level of kids today, which I was just talking to a pediatrician this morning, he says he's been a pediatrician for 5 years and he's seen it increasing in even that short amount of time.
Wow.
I think there's it's a correlation, not a causation. But if you're told that everything is too much for you and you can't handle it, and I'm here, I'm an adult, I'll take care of it. You sit back, sit on this cushion. How can you develop the opposite of anxiety, which is confidence and competence to know that you can handle things if you're never allowed to handle things? So when I don't remember why we got off on this.
Well,
topic,
I diverted there. We diverted. Well, that's my job, and it's a hard one because I love tangents. But we diverted when I mentioned my daughter.
Oh,
You're talking about litigious nature. My daughter falling off the. So number 3 in terms of what has created this atmosphere of overparenting and everything that we're trying to combat.
Number 3, I'd say, is the expert culture. And this is a particular bugaboo of mine because it's a little abstract. But I feel like, if you pick up a parenting book or magazine or article or something you see on the web, it's always there to tell you you're not doing X right. And here are these 17 things you have to do to make it absolutely right. And I was reading an article today, and I can't decide if it's, just talk about this with me for a second. I was reading an article about how to prepare your kid for a sleepover. And, I had a kid who hated sleepovers. So
I
this
hated
is interesting
sleepovers.
to me. Yeah.
As a young boy, like 12 or 13, I was scared.
Yeah. So what did you do? Did you not go on them, or were you forced to go on them? What happened?
No, they didn't force me. I did go on them, but I remember like I went to a kid's house and I was like 12 or 13 years old. I was like, I can do this. I can sleep over. I don't want to be made fun of. I want to be hanging out with my friends. But then they put on a scary movie and I ran home.
Ooh. Oh, a scary movie. Yuck. I hate them to this day.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. So that's really interesting. So in this article, to prepare your kid for a sleepover, it suggested that the parents should hold a mock sleepover at home. Show a movie, maybe not a scary movie, get popcorn, play games, and that this would acclimate your child to what a sleepover is going to be. And I thought that was problematic in two ways. One is that it's not like a sleepover at all, because you're missing the whole element of your parents not being there and being with a bunch of kids and not sleeping and eating lots of food. But the other thing is I don't like the idea that parents have to elaborately prepare their sort of almost validate all the fears and worries by staging elaborate interventions. But maybe it's great. Maybe I'm the idiot. And if somebody, if your parents had just had a mock sleepover with you and had shown, one of the Saw movies or whatever, you could have gone to that sleepover with extreme, confidence. I really don't know. What do you think?
It's a great question. But I mean, of course, I think being prepared is the key for confidence in any kind of performance, a job performance or other types. But at the same time, you can't prepare for everything, and you can't really prepare for childhood. So my instant reaction would be, let your kids fail. Let your kids have that experience. And when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, then deal with them, or let the kids figure it out themselves. Let them go through it and experience it, and don't be so sad and afraid for them, because in the end, they're going to come out stronger. How'd I do? What do you think?
Yeah. So I think the jury's out on that one, because on the one hand, you did have a rotten experience at the sleepover, and I don't think it was a triumphant moment of I can handle this. It was sad, right? You had to come home, and you might have felt a little humiliated.
I did. I felt humiliated. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. But maybe it would have been better if you could have handled it. I don't know. So the thing about expert culture, and perhaps not this particular article, is that, there are a lot of tips for parents, many of them contradictory, of course, and you just start feeling like you don't have the gut instinct to know what to do. Somebody else does. Somebody else has the answer, and that if you do it exactly right, everything will be fine. And if you screw up, it won't be fine. And so you have to be paying intense attention to all the articles and advice that are coming out all the time, and making sure that you're following them correctly. And that, I think, sort of just confuses your normal instinct of like, this is going to be okay, or here, let me show you how to do this, kid. And it replaces it with sort of looking to somebody else to tell you the right way to raise your kids, as if there is a right way. So I think of the expert culture as taking away our confidence, and then often, we were talking about before, we take away our kids. So that's I
think it's a really interesting point to always talk about the expert culture when it comes to parenting. And I think that you put it perfectly, Lenore, when you say that there isn't one right way. Kids learn differently. Parents parent differently. And so there isn't just some list that you're supposed to follow. And this generation of parents has obviously good intentions and is trying to take parenting more seriously. But part of the problem might be this cottage industry of expert culture. What else?
Right. The fourth thing is that we are living, a marketplace, and there's always somebody trying to sell us something, which I don't blame them. That's the American way. But the easiest thing to sell is any device or program, idea or gadget to a parent who is worried that their child is going to be hurt. And their child could be hurt two ways. Their child could be hurt physically, they could be kidnapped or whatever, or some horrible illness, or they could be hurt emotionally, or they could fall behind their peers, God forbid. And so from age 0 on up, there are devices now that are being sold to, that are crazy. There's baby knee pads. There's a device that you can use to hold your kid up sort of like a marionette when they're learning how to walk. And it's called Walking Wings. And it says it helps your child to, cuts down on falls. It's like as if falls are bad. I mean, the reason you're only 2 feet tall when you're learning to walk is because you are going to fall. And that's part of the whole process. And to try to intervene with some new gadget or device is crazy. I mean, it's not bad that kids fall when they're learning how to walk. I think it provides an incentive to walk. You don't want to keep falling. I better learn how to do this well. Right. I was reading over my old notes, like a product that I'd forgotten to flog or hurt is oh my God, what's it called? I think it's called the Freeloader. And it's there's like those baby backpacks that you can use to carry around your kid on your back. Yeah. Well, this one goes up to 80 pounds, which I looked that up, and 80 pounds is the same weight as a dishwasher or a sack of concrete.
That's my daughter now, and she's 12. I'm supposed to carry her at 12?
Right. Well, it doesn't say. It says I think it goes up to, it says an age, maybe 7 or 8.
Well, that's a heavy baby. And you're doing something wrong with there if your baby is weighing.
Well, that's the thing. It says that it's for the child who, it's not for disabled kids. It's for the child who can walk but chooses not to.
That's the tagline. Wow.
Yeah. Now, those are my notes from a long time ago. Maybe it's off the market, or maybe it's doing really well and they have the last laugh on me. But there's always products out there that we're being told we need. There are these portable placemats, like what single-use placemats, I guess most placemats are, that you can bring with you. And it says on the package that it's good for if there's, if the table is dirty or if it's been cleaned with chemicals, like soap or something. So it's telling you that you need this product, whether the table is dirty or clean, your child is in danger, which means that your child is in danger no matter what. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the marketplaces out there. They're telling you that, your child can't crawl, can't eat, can't walk, can't do anything without needing some extra help. Otherwise, they will be in danger. They'll be hurt. They'll get sick. They'll fall. They'll die. And you're not a good parent. So that the pressure to buy all these things that somehow humanity lived without until the last nanosecond is out there on parents. And, so when you're being told that you didn't buy a super sippy duper cup, aren't you worried that your kid is going to choke? You didn't buy the baby monitor that checks on their, their poop every 30 seconds. Aren't you worried that they might be developing a horrible disease? So there's just, the marketplace is also driving us crazy because they can't sell it to us until we're afraid.
That's a really great list. And you hear these discussions, you hear these arguments about parents saying, well, in the 1% chance that something would happen, how would I ever live with myself if I allowed my child to do that? And I always respond, Lenore, with how do you live with yourself by not allowing your child to do that? Because the consequence of not allowing your children to go outside and to go out on their own and be free-range kids is that they aren't resilient young adults, much less adults. They're afraid of everything around them. So the consequence of you not allowing your child is far worse than the very small chance that something drastic or catastrophic is going to happen. Interpret that for me.
Well, you say what I say, and, it's like the point, I was just looking up the kidnapping statistics again today, and right now it's like, I don't even like to talk about it, but it's basically 1 in 6 million chance. So that your child will be kidnapped and killed by a stranger, which some people say, see, what if yours is the one? And it's like, wow. There are not only the enormous consequences of not giving your kid any freedom, but there are risks that we take every day that we give a free pass to.
Don't ever put your kid in the car. Don't ever put your kid in the car.
Right. Somehow we are capable of understanding that it's not perfectly safe, that there could be a drunk driver, there could be a skid on the road, whatever. And yet we say, like, but come on, it's just normal life. Of course, we're going to drive our kid to the mall or to school or whatever. And so you get a shrug on that. But somehow we've fixated on the idea that if you're not with your kid, and that's really when that's what the what ifs are all about. It's not about if you're with your kid. If you're with your kid and they die, well, that's too bad, but nobody's going to hate you. But if you're not with your kid and they die, then it's all your fault.
Yeah.
You should have been thinking about it. And this is when I get to one of the more esoteric ideas of why we're so afraid for our kids. And if you'll bear with me, I'll sort of muddle our way through it.
Yeah,
Can
go
I?
ahead. Yeah, please do. I love it.
Okay,
I love talking to you.
This is really neat. This comes from a professor of religion named Alan Levinovitz, who talks about the fact that we're not done with religion. Many of us still are believers, but the area of our life that religion covers and tells us how to live, the authority of the area that religion has authority over is shrinking. It used to tell us what to wear and what to eat and when to wake up and what to call your child and all sorts of sort of details about everyday life. And now most of those are not covered by religion anymore. You can still believe in God and still be trying to live a good life, but you don't feel it's telling us every single step of the way how to do things. Do you have to eat this or not eat this? Say a prayer before you do this or not? And so into that void has come just us. We have to figure out, what to do and how to do it. And if anything goes wrong, it's not because it was God's will or the Lord works in mysterious ways or fate is fickle, the wheel of fortune is ever turning. I mean, these were deeply held beliefs and comforting beliefs when you got right down to it, because if something bad happened, it wasn't just because of you, it's because how dare you question God's will? You don't know what this is what this is a part of. And when we don't have that to fall back on, it all becomes our fault. And if it can be only your fault, you better be watching every single second of the day, because you have assumed the role of God, that you can keep your child safe every single second of every day from every bad thing that could befall them. And so there's that fear that you are the only person in charge. It's not God anymore. It's you. You have control. And we do have this illusion of control that's aided and abetted by all the technology we have. Because now I can see where my kid is even when I'm not with her. And I can, read his texts, and I can see what websites they visited, and I could tell their temperature, and I can see their, if they're stirring in their sleep. I mean, all this, I can see, did they get a B or an A or an F, frankly, on their most recent Spanish quiz. And so with all this omniscience comes this feeling of omnipotence, but actually they're still disconnected. You can be omniscient like this and still not be able to control everything. But if you don't, you feel like there's not this congregation, there's not this community of people who will understand and sympathize rather than blame. So I think the fear of blame is so overwhelming in parents that it's almost like this double whammy, that I'm afraid that something bad will happen to my kid and that nobody will understand that it wasn't my fault. People will blame me. People will ostracize me. People blame the lady whose kid fell into the gorilla cage, as if kids are always falling into the gorilla cage. So why wasn't she thinking about that?
What I also want to ask you about, of course, is this idea and your perspective on how we're dealing with the gun violence. My daughter has now been in 2 lockdowns, one in her school and one recently at the mall, and it's traumatized her, of course, as it does, and so many other kids as well. And I wonder what you think about it, because, these mass shootings, obviously, seemingly, as statistically, I'm not sure exactly what they are. They certainly seem like they're on the rise, but I'm not sure that these lockdown drills are helping kids psychologically, much less preparing them for a potential violent incident, because as a lot of people say, well, the whoever is going to commit the violence is in that lockdown drill too. He or she, well, it's always a he, is learning. What do you think about these lockdown drills and the effect that they're having on our kids, this generation of kids?
Well, I think it's having an effect not just on the kids, but also on the parents. I mean,
For sure.
one of the things I was trying to figure out, and I still haven't figured out, so I won't be able to help you a whole lot, is how come my mom could send me off to school to walk to school at age 5, and there was a crossing guard who was 10 years old, even though she had quit her job to stay home with me and my sister to give us every advantage and to watch over us. So how come, I'd say it's 2 generations ago, a good parent wasn't thinking about the worst case scenario, the death of her child, every time I was out of her sight lines? And the thing that happened even before all these the school shootings is that people already had started thinking in terms of, my child isn't with me, they're going to die. You know, anything could happen. If I'm not with them, something terrible could happen. That's why they started putting, you know, cameras everywhere and following kids electronically. So I think that the school shootings is, first of all, statistically, school still is a very safe place for kids to be. I think it's considered the safest place for kids to be, even with, you know, Sandy Hook and the Parkland shootings. It seems like they're happening every single second, and we certainly hear about them. But statistically, and that's cold comfort, your child is still extremely safe at school, and actually safer at school than at home or anyplace else. So these lockdowns are driving the kids crazy, and they're driving the parents crazy. And I'm just not sure if they are providing any actual safeguarding. I'm with you. I don't know. I haven't seen any stories that tell me that whether kids are used to being in a lock, you know, are familiar with what occurs, like, oh, we're locking down. Okay. Are they actually safer than if they don't have that training? That's what I would want to know. And I don't know. Do you?
I don't, but I love when people say they don't know, and it's hard to figure those statistics out, but it's definitely a new thing. And I'm glad that you brought up the point of what the effect it's having on parents as well. Let me ask you about, you know, you've written many articles and obviously reacted to these news stories about when people are don't make as much money, when they have to work, you know, both parents or single parents all day, every day, and they're in a situation where they allow their kid to be alone at the playground for a little while, or they leave their kids home for a little while. And sometimes, too often, they're arrested. They're ridiculed publicly. And as you were when you let your kid find his way home from the city. But talk to me about the issue of poverty and just trying to make ends meet, and also being a good, responsible parent, how difficult that is in real life for a lot of folks.
Being a good, responsible parent does not mean you have to be a helicopter parent, doesn't mean you have to be with your child every single second. And there was a New York Times article, it's been about a year now, that was particularly upsetting for me because it talked about how this really upper middle class model of what it means to be a good parent, you know, driving the kid in the Range Rover from school to lacrosse, and, you know, practicing spelling words on the way, has become sort of ingrained as the only way to be a safety conscious and good parent, to the point where there was a study, or there's a survey of parents across the socioeconomic spectrum, and it asked them, if you try to make dinner and your kid says, "Mommy, come play, I don't know, Candyland with me," what should you do? And the vast majority of people across the entire socioeconomic spectrum said, stop making dinner and go play, because interaction is so important and your kids need to learn, you know, vocabulary and turn taking, and that you care. And I thought that making your dinner, you know, is equally important for a kid to see, because it's like, mom has work to do and we all have stuff to do, and your job is to keep yourself entertained while I make dinner, or maybe you want to come help me make dinner. But the idea that we have to always be deferring to our children as if their needs are immediate and paramount, no matter what else is going on, is wrong. And when that model of parenting becomes the model by which we judge, especially or even people who don't have a lot of extra time or extra money to be, driving to the lessons or paying for the tutor or, dropping everything because somebody else will deal with it so that I can play Candyland with my kid. That is particularly awful if you don't have a lot of money. And the case that I just put on Twitter over the weekend that just drove me crazy was there was a mom and her live-in boyfriend, serious boyfriend, and they had two kids, ages, I think 7 and 3 or 8 and 3. And the mom worked at night. And so the kids were already asleep. And so the boyfriend drove the mom 2 miles to her job and then was going to come home. So that's like I would guess a 10-minute excursion, maybe a 15-minute excursion. But on the way back, he got a flat tire. And he couldn't call the mom to tell her what was going on because her phone was broken. And so he didn't want to wake the kids. He didn't have a way to get a hold of the mom, and he couldn't get anywhere because he was in his broken down car. And the kids, the 7-year-old woke up or something and saw there was no parents there. And after a while, called the cops. The cops came. There's no parent home. And then the children were taken away from the parents, thrown into foster care. And I can't remember if the mom was thrown into jail or not.
God.
So there's a case where, the kid was so capable. The kid waited a while, saw that there was no parent, did what they were told, which is, if you have a problem, call the cops if you think something is wrong or if you're worried. I'd be worried too. Maybe the parents are in a ditch. And so that's a case where poverty, you don't have a working phone, you don't have an extra car, you don't have a chauffeur, you don't have a helicopter. So the idea that equals bad parenting when it is simply everyday parenting for people who don't have a ton of extra money is outrageous. And the statistics I've heard are that 1 in 10 kids across America at some point will undergo some kind of CPS, Child Protective Services, inspection or intervention. But among Black kids, it's 53%.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, there's so many issues here dealing with poverty and, of course, race as well, and how parents are seen differently given the circumstances, and we need to look at that closely and differently as well. But, let me
yeah, and we
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I just want to say, so the point is that, we want to keep children safe, and we want to take them away from parents who are truly neglecting them, not giving them food.
Right, but sometimes life happens, and when you're short on resources, like so many of us are, then you have to make do, and then those are the cases when often the kids prove themselves. It sounds like what you're saying.
Well, in this case, sure, the kids were. I mean, this was a kid who could handle herself and could, knew how to use the phone and understood what was going on. So that to me is a kid who's very fine staying home. But what I wanted to say is that if you can't mistake everyday imperfection, not having a babysitter one time, or having the kid come home with a latchkey because you come home at 5 and the kid gets home at 3, and that the kid is old enough to, eat a snack and play or whatever. That is so different from actual neglect or abuse, and to pretend that they're one and the same, and that one time if you let your kid wait in the car 3 minutes while you pick up the dry cleaning, you're neglecting them.
Right.
Or you let them come home with the latchkey, and that's abuse because anything terrible could happen. What if there's a fire? It's just an inhumane way of looking at life. Life is not perfect, and people don't have every resource, and people make do. And the idea that we should all be living like the 1%, and that is the only good way to parent is false in every sense, and it's turning normal parents into, people on child abuse registries. There's actually child abuse registries in every state. It's sort of like the sex offender registry, except it's not public. But if you're going to get a job as a teacher or a daycare worker or a nurse, and that mom who left their kid home because the phone wasn't working, she might well end up on that registry and never be able to get a job as a teacher.
Yeah, you've written and talked a lot about that as well. What about that sex offender registry? There's a lot of counterintuitive consequences as a result of that, no?
The sex offender registry is something that has not worked. It was created, a public sex offender registry was created with the idea that people who commit sex offenses are incorrigible, and that once they are back out in public, they are insatiable, and anybody living near one is going to have a child who's in danger. And so then the laws were made that if you were on the registry, you couldn't live within 500 feet of a school. You couldn't live within 1,000 feet of a school. You couldn't live within 1,000 feet of a bus stop or a dock. I mean, there was an incredible list of things that you couldn't live near. And it turns out that statistically, these new measures have not made kids any safer whatsoever, because to the surprise of most people, including me, it turns out that people who are on this registry are not incredible recidivists, people who commit another crime. In fact, the recidivism rate for people convicted of sex crimes is lower than anything other than people convicted of murder. Like if you're an arsonist, if you're a burglar, if you're assault and robbery, these people commit crimes again and again, or certainly at a higher rate, far higher rate than people on the registry. So when you have a registry, what you're doing is saying that a person who committed a crime, whether it was, sexting a girlfriend or raping a child, first of all, they're all mashed together. And secondly, they're all going to do something horrible to any child they see walking by. And the statistics are absolutely the opposite. Most crimes against children, whether it's sexual or not, are committed by people they know, right. People that they see a lot, and not just a stranger who happens to have a sign on his lawn that says a sex offender lives here, as some have to put.
I've been talking to you for a while. I want to let you go because I know you have things to do, but I do want to make sure people know where to find you and your work. Of course, your book, your Free Range Kids, your on Twitter and on social media, Free Range Kids. But what about your nonprofit, which is really interesting, the work that you guys are doing there, Let Grow?
Yeah, so let me just say a couple of words about Let Grow, because all we've been doing today is talking, which I love to do, and I talk all the time. But what I discovered in 10 years of talking about Free Range Kids is that a lot of people nod along, but it was very hard to change any behaviors, very hard to let the kids start walking to school, even if you think it's a great idea, even if you think everybody should be doing it, even if you think it's better than driving them. If everybody's driving them, it's hard to be the only one letting your kid walk to school. Right. So Let Grow is a nonprofit that was begun by me and a couple other people, including Jonathan Haidt, who wrote The Coddling of the American Mind, with the express goal of changing behaviors. And I guess the initiative that I'm most positive about are the ones that we're doing in schools now. And I have to say that everything we do is free. So it's not like, I'm trying to peddle something and make myself rich. So the Let Grow project is a school-based project where a teacher, or all the teachers in the school, even better, give kids this homework assignment. Go home and do something on your own without your parents. And it can be as simple as, do the laundry. It can be as exciting as go run an errand or make dinner or get yourself to school. When a whole group of people is doing this, and it's, the kid decides with the parent. So it's not like the kid said, I have to go climb a tree. It's they talk to the parent and figure out what the project is going to be. But when they do this thing and they do go get the bread and they come home and they're so proud, the parent, this is the only thing that changes a parent, is seeing their kid walk through the door, proud as can be, that they got to help do something and be part of the world. And instead of seeing the kid as just this vulnerable, embryo, you start seeing them as this blossoming young man or woman. And that changes the parents, because that's a great feeling. It's a high. It's like you were talking about with, your kid rose to the occasion of the, she was working that cast, or you and your brother survived the bee stings. I mean, you just feel great when you realize, like, okay, the world tried to get me, and look I'm doing fine. I can handle it.
Yep.
So the Let Grow project in schools is having such amazing effects. What I was going to read you, wait, I'm just going to run over here for 1 second, was going to read you a couple of, if I can find it. Yeah, I can. Hang on.
Go ahead.
Plowing through the papers on my desk, going to this big orange folder, which is filled with 240 forms filled out by 240 seventh graders, about how they felt before they did their Let Grow project. So this project is for kids from basically kindergarten through 8th grade.
Okay.
So these are 7th graders, so their ages 12 and 13. And the question was, were there any challenges you were afraid of or hesitant to try? Why? So one kid writes, I was hesitant to go into the store and buy things myself because I wasn't comfortable going into a crowded store with a bunch of strangers without my mom. Okay, next kid. I was afraid to go into town alone. I could get kidnapped. Next kid. I was hesitant to try walking my dog alone because I was scared that he would get loose from the leash or a scary man would take me. Next kid. I was afraid to climb a tree because I was scared I was going to fall and break a bone. And on and on and on. So let me just get your impression. Does that strike you as odd?
It strikes me as normal, unfortunately. It strikes me as this generation of kids being, a generation of bedwetters as or fearful. I don't mean to make fun of people who wet their beds, because of the fear that I think we as parents are putting in them.
Yeah, but once again, it's not just parents. I mean, so many schools won't let a kid even walk home. They
Fair enough. They won't let them go outside for recess.
Right. If it's too cold. I just did a story. There's a school in Texas that wouldn't let you go out if it was under 60.
Oh my God.
So, and if you have places that, they won't let the kid off the bus if there's not an adult there to walk them home. And if you have people screaming at you because you let your kid wait in the car while you pick up the pizza. I mean, it's not parents being, just
society.
hovering.
It's more than right. Great point. Yeah.
It's really, they're in a whole society that is emphasizing and re-emphasizing every time that something terrible could happen and it's all your fault. So, when they did this Let Grow project, I went back and interviewed them afterwards, and they were so sunny. I mean, that was the amazing thing. Actually, one girl cried when she was talking about like how she now had friends. I mean, the thing that surprised me most was not just that they were doing more. I mean, they tried out for ball teams, and one girl got her ears pierced, and now they're going to the park with their friends. One kid started making a fort with his buddies, and now they all meet down there and they love it because there's no Wi-Fi and there's no parents and they just talk together. And the thing that surprised me most was that they had made more friends. And I think they were really even afraid to answer their phones. One girl told me she was afraid to start talking to somebody because what if they thought she was dumb? The teacher told me that some of these 7th graders were afraid to go to their locker by themselves. They were afraid to go to the cafeteria by themselves in their own school. This is the anxiety that's out there. And once they had to do project after project, this teacher made them do 20 projects. So sometimes it was something as simple as try a new food. And sometimes they would do something more complex, like, go to the pizza store with their friends, order the food, divide the bill and leave the tip. And that made them feel on top of the world. And so this is something that's free. It doesn't take class time. The parents are thrilled by the results. The kids are thrilled by the results. The teachers are very excited. And even this little 3rd grader interviewed, I said, what were you doing before the Let Grow project? And she said, well, she'd come home and watch TV. And I was like, okay, why? Why didn't you do the things that you're doing now? Like now she was making tortillas and she was drawing and going outside. And she said, well, when you're a kid, you don't know that you can do things.
Right. And people tell you that you can't. I love that. It's a great project. It definitely works. Anecdotally, I remember when my daughter was 7, and she wanted garlic knots. Speaking of the pizza store.
Oh, yeah.
And my advice to any parent out there is, if your kids want something simple like that, you can take that opportunity to say, yeah, you can have that, but you have to go in and get it. I'll be right out here. She had a look of horror on her face, but I said, do you want the garlic knots or not? She said, yeah, but what do I say to the guy? And guess what? She figured it out. The guy was more shocked than anything else. This girl that could barely see over the counter was there to order without an adult. She didn't know how to make change. He didn't know how to talk to her. It was kind of a disaster for both of them until she came out with those garlic knots, and she came out also not only with some garlic powdered carbs, but a whole bunch of new confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. Most parents, when they let their kids do something like this, they are the ones who are irrepressible. I mean,
Yes.
They just want to tell the world, because it's not just a relief. It's this feeling of elation. Look, I raised a person. I mean, like, what are we here for? We're not going to be here forever. I mean, eventually our job is to, go quietly into that dark night, and the kids are still here, and you want to raise children who are going to carry on. And so I think there's something bone deep, probably DNA deep, in seeing that your child can be competent without you. That is glorious, because it means you've done your job.
Yeah, the sign of a successful parent. All right, Lenore, I could talk to you forever, and I hope to talk to you again very soon. Let's keep this conversation going. Thank you so much for your time today. It's so great to have a conversation with you.
I love talking to you, and I'm so happy you remembered me, so thanks very much.
Could never forget. Check her out, everybody. Free Range Kids, Lenore Skenazy, letgrow.org, and we will talk to you very soon.
Thanks, Pete. Bye-bye.
Okay, you made it to the end of the conversation, and I'm so glad that you did. Hopefully you got a lot out of that. Any questions, any arguments, anything you'd like to add to it? I'd love to hear from you. Just email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. I was listening there to the end with you. I sounded so whiny there at the end. Did you hear me? Thank you so much for coming on today. So listen to that. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for your time today. So much for your time today. I guess I'm just in the mood to make fun of myself talking. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Check out Lenore Skenazy online at freerangekids.com and letgrow.org. Get her book, and she will be on, I'm sure, a lot more, but I'd love to get your feedback on that. We're going to talk more parenting, and who else would you like to hear? If you're paying a subscription for this podcast on Patreon, well, then you are entitled to a lot more having your opinion heard. So let me know. You can contact me on Patreon or just email me anytime and let me know who you'd like to hear. I've got a big Rolodex of people that I can reach out to and get on the show. What issues, what guests, let me know. And thank you very much for joining me to fight apathy and learn together and be the change that you want to see in the world. We'll talk to you on Wednesday. Podcasts are up by 8 a.m. at the latest. Tell your friends.